Scott Lang was the second person to bear the title of the Ant-Man, obtaining the powers and costume previously used by Hank Pym in the pages of Marvel Premiere. However, he initially appeared in a cameo appearance a month prior in Avengers number 181. In order to maintain their priority status with the US government, the Avengers were forced to tighten up security measures. Scott Lang was the Stark Industries employee responsible for installing the updated security systems in Avengers Mansion. Shortly after, Scott's backstory was revealed in Marvel Premiere number 47 and 48. The issue starts in medias res with an action sequence featuring the new Ant-Man, but we quickly flash back to his origin. Lang was an electronics expert turned burglar turned inmate, but during the time he spent incarcerated, he was a model prisoner. As such, after serving his time, the warden set up an interview with Stark Industries for him, and he began a promising career designing advanced security systems. Lang was also finally able to see his daughter Cassie again, who had been staying with his sister Ruth. However, Scott Lang's world was shattered when Cassie fell ill to an inoperable heart condition. The hospital bills piled up quickly, even eclipsing Scott's salary from Stark Industries. Although Scott was hesitant to return to his old ways, he couldn't help but case the houses in the richer neighborhoods. But hope showed its face when Cassie's doctor informed Scott of a new procedure developed by Dr. Erica Sondheim that could potentially save his daughter. Scott traveled to the Sondheim Institute to find the good doctor being taken away against her will. Lang tried to fight off her captors, but he was grabbed by a large arm emerging from a limousine and tossed aside. Fortunately, Scott remembered the escaping car's license plate number and tracked it to the heavily fortified headquarters of Cross Technological Enterprises. Scott knew he couldn't get inside on his own, and he would need money in order to hire help. So that very night, Scott Lang donned his burglary gear and returned to one of the houses he had cased earlier. Using his skills to bypass the house's formidable security, he made his way inside where he found a high-tech laboratory containing a red costume and cybernetic helmet. It was then that Scott realized the home he had broken into belonged to Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man. He also suspected that Pym's costume could be the answer to his problems, and Scott returned to his apartment with the Ant-Man suit. After testing the suit's powers to shrink and to control ants, Scott used a flying mount to return to CTE and entered through an air vent, his increased proportional strength allowing him to jump much higher than his tiny size would imply. His skills also allowed him to avoid the building's internal defenses, although something did set off a stun blaster behind him. That'll come up later. It seems Lang was still unused to his new powers, for when he tried to hitch a ride on a guard heading to the operation room, he accidentally knocked the full-size man over. He was able to find his destination regardless, and, growing to full size, the new Ant-Man announced his arrival. Inside the operating room, Dr. Sondheim was being forced to treat the same giant that tossed Scott aside from the limo, and, after the Ant-Man took down the CTE guards, the massive form rose and introduced himself as Darren Cross. Cross attacked, and while Ant-Man was formidable, Cross overpowered and depowered his smaller opponent, breaking the antenna from his cybernetic helmet and removing his size-changing chemicals. After chaining Scott up, the deformed yet well-spoken giant explained his origin story. Darren Cross was a businessman who spent his life building Cross Technological Enterprises, or CTE. The strain of doing so eventually took its toll as Cross's heart began to fail. His science team developed a nuclear organic pacemaker to keep his heart beating, but over time the side effects of the experimental procedure began to manifest. Not only did he become deformed, albeit with the benefit of increased strength, but his heart could only handle the nuclear pacemaker for so long before giving out entirely. In order to survive, Cross had his men abduct homeless vagrants, transplanting one of their hearts into his body whenever the pacemaker burned through another. However, he had now discovered a more permanent solution. With Dr. Sondheim's laser surgery, he could remove the nuclear organic pacemaker and transplant a new heart simultaneously. a heart he now planned to take from a certain size-changing superhero. Fortunately for Scott, the Ant-Man suit came prepared with a spare set of antennae hidden in the boots. Repairing his helmet, Scott Lang summoned the ants and sent them to retrieve the size-changing chemicals he needed to shrink. His powers restored, Ant-Man slipped out of his cell and challenged Cross again. This time, Scott was more prepared for the fight, but it didn't seem to matter as Darren Cross's heart suddenly failed. As it turns out, Dr. Sondheim had tricked Cross during his last surgery, and rather than implant a new heart, she gave him back his old, damaged one that was unable to handle the strain of the fight, and burst. And so Ant-Man rescued Erica Sondheim, who, in return, treated Scott Lang's daughter, saving her life as well. Once Cassie was safe, Yellowjacket, aka Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, arrived at the hospital. Speaking with Pym privately, Scott Lang intended to give himself up. However, Pym had no intentions on arresting Lang, and revealed that he had been watching him since he broke into his home. As Yellowjacket, he followed Scott during his adventure until he was taken down by the stun blaster that Scott circumvented. See, told you that would come up again. Anyway, Pym allowed Scott to keep the suit, giving him his blessing to continue the legacy of Ant-Man. And that's the origin of the second Ant-Man. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and always be sure to subscribe for more marvelous content. As always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, along with links to my Twitter and Patreon, Instagram, all that stuff. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!